everybody, Mike Reese here. I was trying to do videos about, I was trying to do different types of videos lately. I've been trying to do after shows and even Ultimate Fighters shows and stuff like that, talking about the fights and the fighters. That didn't go well. So I'm just going to stick to these martial arts chats. And today I'm going to discuss something that seems to be, I don't know, there seems to be like this whole debate on sport fighting versus street fighting and stand-up versus grappling. There's like all these different sides to it. And I've already covered in one of my videos already, I've already covered the aspect of the fact that you can do both. You can do sport and street. It's just a matter of strategy, and it's a matter of perspective, like how you're doing it. Because you can't train in your gym, you can't train other people and with other people. You can't train all the time with this I'm going to kill everybody attitude. Because if you train with that attitude, then you'll have no one to train with, because everybody you run into will be dead. And see, that doesn't make any sense. So to sit there and say that all I do is it just means death, destruction, and killing and destroying and all this stuff, and it's not meant, just be honest about it and say you just don't do the sporting side. There's no sport for what I have. I mean, Kali guys can say, dude, we work with knives and sticks and stuff. I mean, even then they could do a Dog Brothers tournament to prove their effectiveness if they want to. If they say that's just not something that they want to do, then fine. We shouldn't hold anyone like at all like, oh, you don't get in the ring. You shouldn't look at them poorly because they don't do that. Because it doesn't mean they're not working, it doesn't mean they're not training, and it doesn't mean they're not practicing things that are effective, because they're still practicing their timing, they're still practicing the scenarios, they're still practicing good work ethic and technique. They're still working on these things, and they should be, if they want to be held at all, we want to hold them at all serious about it. That's one thing. Someone not working for their, someone that's not training, or someone that, they present something that's obviously poor and flawed, and then try to present themselves at this high level. That's one thing, okay? I'm talking about people who they're obviously at a high level of how they work and train, because you see it in the skills that they present and how they move and what they do. Fine, but do they absolutely have to get into the cage to prove that? Do they really have to have a one-on-one conflict with someone just to prove something? A lot of guys in the self-defense business, they're going for the aspect of one simple thing: if you ever have to use it. Because the vast majority of people are never going to use it. They'll get away from the subject just because they've learned awareness, they've learned how to evade a problem, they've learned de-escalation skills. Something you don't learn in an MMA gym. So does that make them less valid? Does that make that less valid of a self-defense technique? Not really. Does it mean they don't train or practice and really get in and really pressure test their stuff, which means actually really getting aggressive, people coming in and actually hitting them, pressuring them down to the ground, grabbing them, throwing them? Does it mean that they're not doing it correctly? Some might not be, but that doesn't mean every one of them aren't. Because I'm telling you, people still train hard that way. People still do it that way. It just means they're not going to take that to practice, because what they're targeting is different. Like, you guys want to target the body, the head, the legs. They're targeting joints. They're kicking knees. They're smashing in, throats. They're going for shots that could actually debilitate someone quickly. And in a sporting event, you don't want to do that, because you don't want them to die. Now, in practice, how are they doing that without hurting someone? Well, they're aiming for it, but they're not destroying it. That means you have a sense of control. That means you could viably take your skill sets into the ring. So I'm on both sides here. I think that you could viably go into it, but I don't think we should hold them accountable if they don't. You know, they just don't want to do it that way. I think that's an okay thing. I think that's something that we should just respect as martial artists and people that we can look at and say, okay, fine. Now, I do believe that, you know, there's people out there that say they believe in the no touch knockout. I will not believe in the no touch knockout. There's no way I'm going to believe that. No. There's people who I think are misinformed when it comes to certain things. When it comes to pressure point techniques and things like that. I've worked in corrections. They work. Now, does it mean they're always going to work? No. And does it mean that sometimes you might have to strike that area first? Yeah, but you have to be trained in it. And not only trained in it, you have to do well in it. You have to be able to exploit it. So you have to be able to train it over and over and over until you're really good at it. And a lot of times you're not going to be doing that I mean, it's almost like you get to a point where you have to apply it on. You're already in a restraint situation. To capture an entry in, you're not going to be, you know, hitting them in the forehead and doing all this stuff. That's not what's going to happen. But you can apply the pressure on these points just to get them to start moving, because it does start moving the body. So there are people out there that have pain resistance, though, and that means that's never going to work. So do you know how to lock the body? Do you know how to get a spinal adjustment just completely with just a lock or a hold? If you know how to do that, then you're doing it right. You're doing restraint right. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused. And then you got, you know, I think when we're getting onto that subject of, you know, who's better, and then we got the ground fighters saying, you know, everything goes to the ground, and strikers going, it doesn't all go to the ground. It goes to the ground, and it doesn't go to the ground. I mean, okay, let's face facts. The real fight doesn't start from me hitting this guy here or him taking me down to the ground. It all starts off standing up and possibly, depending on whatever happens, because if you're bum rushed, if this is a self-defense scenario more, if you're going to get bum rushed, well, what's going to happen? He's going to either hit you or he's going to tackle you or push you or plant you into a wall or something. But if you watch any self-defense or any like street fight stuff, this is just like nobody's. They hit. I've seen people hit, and they do everything they can, and no one's getting laid out. But I've seen sucker punches land, same bad punching, but they still lands because they got full everything into it because the person didn't see it. They weren't prepared for it, and they got hit. That's like saying, hey, prepare for something you're never going to see. You can't prepare for that. You just have to be aware of everything around you. You have to learn to be aware. That's the self-defense portion of it. You know, because no physical skills can be added if you don't have any awareness. Which means you're already in a bad situation. So, but then we have the whole aspect of this one-on-one competition. Now we're going to get into one-on-one, ground versus street, you know, striking. Well, which one's better? It doesn't matter. The person who's better with the grappling skills are trying to get the guy to the ground. The guy with the striking skills are going to try to keep the guy up on his feet. The problem is in any confrontation, even if you see it on UFC street fights, whatever, they go from about this far to here really fast. It's like milliseconds. Or seconds to milliseconds to seconds. Sorry, I've been sick. You clash. Which means what range is actually probably the most effective? In my opinion, you're defined by the moment in the clinching range or within that tight quarters range. You are defined with what you can do within this range, which means punching and kicking is out, which means you better know elbows, knees, how to clinch, and how to tie up really, really effectively. And in a street scenario, that's when you start utilizing, you know, clothing and jackets and hoods over the head. I mean, this is when you start applying, you know, hooks in the, you know, grabbing people in the face, smashing their nose. I mean, doing things like that to get your edge. When you're in a sporting competition, this is when you apply the head hook. You know, this is when you try to start doing the clinching. This is when you start doing your underhooks, your overhooks. I mean, this is when you start trying to sweep in and get that underhook so you can start maintaining a position a little bit better. This is when you start trying to hold on But at the same time, you better know how to start dropping elbows in a tight spot and know how to generate power in a small confined area. This is where a lot of people fail. They don't know how to generate power in a small tight area. And I'm telling you, the people who know how to do it are the ones who win the fights right here. That's why I think you saw John Jones, Anderson Silva, you saw them win in such a tight area. Or you saw the guys that are all juiced up that, like, start throwing punches and they can just knock you out with these great straight shots. And that's just whatever. If you keep the distance, if you're gonna throw down, it's the guy who's got to have the reach, or the guy that can move inside the person and get their reach to maintain and actually connect. Excuse me. And then we talking about grappling skills. I think groundwork. I think you should never ignore groundwork. I don't care if you're in self-defense. I don't care what you do. You need to not ever ignore the throws. You should never ignore grappling. You should never ignore anything that has to do with either being on the ground, getting thrown on the ground, taken down, whatever you want to call it. It's all, whatever. You just don't want to take away those skill sets, because of the fact that if you take away that, you're gonna, if you say, well, that these are inflated situations, they are inflated because they're normally done through police reports that are there for control and restraint situations, and that's why they always go to the ground. Now, if you were talking about a guy that was always striking, but you see a lot of people, like I said, they always close in really quick. Does it have to go to the ground? No. But will it if you don't know anything else? Yeah. If you don't know how to catch your balance? Yeah. If you fall over something? Yeah. So the possibility, is it there? Absolutely. You absolutely still need to understand how to do the things you got to do. Now, am I going to go, oh, the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is always the best way? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, whatever you want to call it, because there's different factions of it now, but they aren't the only ones out there doing grappling. I think they're a great resource. I think you should check them out. If you don't, I think they're good. But Judo's been doing what they're doing for many years. Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, that's been around a lot longer. If you go into some of the older styles of Jiu-Jitsu, have been doing it a long time. They've been doing the same stuff, guys. Believe it or not, whether they want to claim that they've been doing it and it's all them, that's fine. It's not, but it's not. They have done some things and shown that you can work on the ground easier and know how to use leverage easier. But that's fine. I've seen Jiu-Jitsu guys know leverage. Every Jiu-Jitsu person I've ever met understands leverage. Okay, wrestlers have been doing it for have been doing it a long time. Adding the submissions and locks and flows like that. People have done locks and stuff like that, even in Western society. If you look into some fencing and Western martial arts type stuff, even from England, you'll see the defenses where they've got these guys into these arm locks, these arm bars. They're locking someone out to take their knife out, or just you have all these things. Greek society. Even ancient Egyptian, you find that they understand locks, they understood throws, they understood locking up. And I know people might harass me a little bit about the whole thing, but if Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu were the absolute best, then why would Ronda Rousey, who is strictly judo, be the one top female? She's taken on top-ranked wrestlers. She an Olympic wrestler. She's taken on top-ranked Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artists, and she's won. So now we got to get into the real aspect of how any of these merge. Is it what is it? It's the training ethic. I think they all train their butts off, but I really believe the difference between certain people is that moment. They know how to capitalize on a moment better than the other one. They know how to drive and push for their personal moment. They know how to basically manipulate the situation to get it to where they need it. Or they at least understand that if it's not going their way, they're going to try to do everything they can to start pushing it their way. They understand certain mental aspects of it, that the other one may not know. And I'm not trying to throw everyone up in the air like this person's better than this person, because that's not it. Everyone's beatable. Everyone can be beaten. I just think you have to find one, the ability to, the nerve to, and honestly, you have to start focusing on what is really working. Is it really Ronda Rousey's amazing armbar? Everyone's got an armbar. How is she doing it? She's focused. And she's going to do everything she can to manipulate the situation to get the outcome she wants. It's a mental push. There's just some great things out there. And I really think that people should not just neglect the older arts like judo, jiu-jitsu, whether it's from, Japan or even Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It doesn't matter. I think they're all good. I've rolled with these guys. I've worked with jiu-jitsu guys. But I have also done really well against guys that were higher ranked, considerably ranked well in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I haven't had a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. I've worked with judo, I've worked with Jiu-Jitsu, I've worked with wrestling, I've worked with Aikido and Aikido Jiu-Jitsu. And I've been able to work the ground just as well as and effectively as they were. Boss Rutan didn't have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in his class in his life when he was grappling with some of these guys. And they would say, where did you learn your Jiu-Jitsu? And he said, I never did. But yet, for some reason, he's beating these guys with, certain grappling techniques because he was grappling with these guys. And it was because he was just saying, well, this works. I'll hook this here. This works. It's like figuring things out, understanding how things work is actually kind of like your benefit. So, do I believe there's one? No. I think, in my opinion, I don't think it's striking or grappling. I think it's the tight-knit quarters, clinching range that will make you all a better fighter. I think you can be good at striking. I think you can be good at groundwork, but one or the other, you guys are going to be meeting in this close, tight range. And if you're good at this range, you're going to probably be the one that's going to be you're going to be the one that wins. You're the one that's going to step out ahead. Because it's the people who lose it here that end up on the ground, and they're strikers, they end up on the ground. It's the ones that don't know how to get too close here. They're trying to shoot in. This guy's kneeing them in the face. They don't know how to stand back up and work that clinch and just start wrecking them. And that's the thing. If he's kneeing you in the face, or he's dropping an elbow into your head, maybe he knows the clinch work a little bit better than you do, and you're trying to shoot in, and he knows how to stuff your takedown. Well, he means that he's good at this area right here, and when you stand up, he's going to start dropping elbows on you. If you understand that tight network area, then I think you're going to be more efficient as a fighter. Okay? So I'm going to throw that out there for everybody. Next time I'm going to talk about one of the lady people that I really respected back in the day, Kathy Long. I think she was an amazing forerunner in women's martial arts when it came to out there. There were so many others. I'm going to try to research about a bunch of it because I really think she is being... I think that we're lifting up Ronda Rousey, and then we're understating some of these forerunners that are out there. That were really making a statement back in a time when there was no women leagues, when there was no, it was like they had to go into gyms, and women were conceivably back in the 70s and stuff like that. These women were not seen at 80s and stuff like that. It wasn't like commonplace to see women at a dojo or something like that. It was very masculine. So I want to give credit and tribute to people like Kathy Long. You got people like Cynthia Rothrock and a lot of these other ladies that are out there. And so I want them to be seen that way. But I want to focus on Kathy Long because I think she is an amazing individual. So I'll come back next time and I'll talk to you guys a little bit about that. Later.